speaking now of a time, sorry, 5 minutes, but just a bit of. I set out to write a book in which this was expressed in a way that made rational sense rather than simply mystical sense. That my mystical experience with the beatific vision had to be formulated into some rational structure that could be transferred to other people. What did this amount to philosophically?
Hey, dickheads! Like a pink laser beam of truth beaming from San Diego and Ohio to your brain hole. We have just bribed a dirty record producer, and we are here to talk about Humpty Dumpty in Oakland. You can get your Dickheads content live every Tuesday night now with the PKD Hangouts. And the first hour is devoted to doing interviews for the Dickheads podcast. Every Tuesday night, 6 o'clock Pacific time, you can join the Dickheads live. You can be there, you can ask questions, you can be a part of it. It's a hangout, and hang with your peeps, right? Your dickheads. That being said, we are still going to be producing episodes and maybe some more long form interviews here in the near future. We are here. I am one of your co-hosts. If you're new to the show, if for some reason you're like, I really needed some Humpty Dumpty and Oakland commentary, I am David Agranoff. And my other co-host, Professor David Harlan Wilson. Now, we're going to try to contain him. We're going to try to contain him during this introduction. He loves to talk about himself.
Who?
And the final dickhead,
you,
Mr. Langhorne J. Tweed.
Yeah, he got it. He nailed it.
That's Langhorne J. Tweed. He's here.
Who has one of the best
David got it.
names
He got it in one.
ever.
Got it in one.
Got it in one. All right, so we're back, and we are going to get into one of the posthumous, I said it right this time, posthumous novels of Philip K. Dick. But before we do that, we're going to get into some PKD news, and hopefully it's still relevant news when this comes out. But the first piece of PKD news is that the winner of the Philip K. Dick Award was given to Brenda Peynado. I think that's how you say her name. It's Peynado, for her novel Time Agent. And it was described as Raquel and Marlena grieve the loss of their daughter and upload her consciousnly to the only device they have access to, a robot dog. Well, I don't know much about Time's Agent. I can't say much about it. It was published by Tor. Tor, mostly does good stuff. They published this book that we're talking about today. So, I will say that the fact that these awards are given to paperback originals is one of the things that we appreciate about the PKD Award, because those of us who put out books on paperback, we want some respect too. From not everything has to have like some fancy pants hardback edition. And now, if you go to Barnes and Nobles, I don't know if you've seen this trend lately of the painted pages on the side of the fantasy novels. They're getting really elaborate with some of these releases, and I do think that's cool from a book design perspective. But let's give it a shout out to the paperbacks. Now, the only other piece of PKD news that I have is that there is so there was a couple of years ago, there was a science fiction novel called like The Last Policeman by an author named Ben Winters, and I read it. It was mildly popular, but he also he's created some very Philip K. Dick-ish novels, but he created this comic book series where PKD is a time traveling character. It's from Ani Press, and I think it's called Benjamin is the name of the series, the comic book series. And it's not technically Philip K. Dick in the comic book. It's a character named Benjamin J. Karp, who dies in 1982, and he's a science fiction writer. But it's very clearly like they drew him to look like Philip K. Dick. Like all like the promotional material basically hangs their hat on Phil. I don't know why they didn't just make him Phil a character. I don't know if it was a rights thing or Michael Bishop got away with it in Secret Ascension, right?
And what I was going to, David, there's another comic that came out in heavy metal in 2020, written by Michael David Nelson and illustrated by Nelson and another artist, Dwayne Harris, called Philip K. Dick's Head is Missing. And it's almost the same premise, but it's based on, of course, I don't think we talked about it yet. When they were making that Philip K. Dick android that I think David Duffy wrote about. Duffy was the last name of the guy who was involved with that and wrote a book on it like 20 years ago. In any case, Benjamin, I was going to say Benjamin, like Walter Benjamin. Benjamin seems, like I said, almost a mirror image from what I've read of it, of Philip K. Dick's Head is Missing, but that's just one short comic in heavy metal.
Right. Well, this one, the description, it says, when Benjamin J. Karp awakens, alive, burned out in a burned out motel in the fringes of Los Angeles, he remembers dying. He knows he shouldn't exist. Is he a dream, a robot, a ghost, a clone, a simulation? In his own time, Karp pondered all these scenarios through his fiction, and now he treks from Studio City to Venice Beach, onward into the paranoid sprawl of 21st century Los Angeles. Will he be called, where he is called to investigate the greatest mystery yet himself? Now, this book defies a little bit of our standard format, and because this book was, now with all these posthumous novels, we kind of have to talk about
Which book? Which book? Humpty Dumpty in Oakland?
Yes.
So
we're going to get into Humpty now, and because it was written in maybe October of 1960 and published in October of 1986.
David, what was happening in those years?
Well, see, here's the problem. I think the first draft of this was written in 1955. So I struggled with what to say about when this was written versus when this was published. However, we do know that the last draft of this, the one that we probably read, was turned in to the Scott Meredith Literary Agency in October of 1960. And it was published in October of 1986. So I'm going with the 60-86 split. So about 26 years difference. And so in October 7th, 1960, the TV show Route 66 premiered, just to give you some context at the time. October 12th, JFK, on October 12th, 1960, that same month, JFK and Richard Nixon's third presidential debate happened. So how about that? And it's the same month that Khrushchev, the president or the dictator from Russia, slammed his shoe on the desk at the UN and yelled at the
Dictator,
US for being bullies. So just to give you some context for 1960, the number one hit song was The Twist by Chubby Checker. And the top grossing movie for the 48th week in a row was Ben-Hur. 48 weeks.
Nice.
Ben-Hur.
Written by a communist, right?
I guess.
And at one point, if I'm not mistaken, Ben-Hur
was written by Trumbo.
Right? What's that?
Wasn't that written by Trumbo? Ben-Hur?
I can't remember, but I know it was outselling the Bible. It was like the best selling that, the Bible, and there was one other book, turn of the century. I can't remember. Uncle Tom's Cabin, maybe?
No, I think it might have been.
Seriously.
Yeah.
You know,
But
the internet
Ben-Hur
exists, so we
was
can look
up
up
there.
these things, but I'm not going to. I'm going to just go strictly off my notes. And all I know is that 48 weeks, the U.S. public had chosen Ben-Hur as their favorite movie. And as of October 19th of that month. Now, it was released in 1986. And October of 1986, exactly 26 years later, there was a summit between President Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev in Finland. The Iran-Contra affair was blowing up, and the number one hit song was not Chubby Checkers, The Twist. It was True Colors by one Cyndi Lauper, that would later become a mainstay in gay culture in this century. But the top grossing movie was not Ben-Hur. Any guesses what the top grossing movie was in October of 1986? We were all there for this, so.
Well, yeah, I can see it right there.
Oh, you have it on your notes. Yeah, you're. Oh, come on. That's not a knife. It was Crocodile Dundee. Big difference.
I love that movie.
I saw Crocodile Dundee in the theater. I added to that, so I'm not sure I could sit through that movie again. But hey, it shows a difference in the time between when this book was written and when it was released.
The street punks were hilarious in that scene specifically.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well,
there was a young Charles Dutton, I believe, in that. Yeah.
And spawned 2 sequels, I think. At least 1 sequel.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone thought Crocodile Dundee
the second one was, I enjoyed that as much as the first. I think there was a third one later on. I can't remember.
Yeah. It's weird to think about Crocodile Dundee as being such a big hit, but it was. And I don't know how many people, it's definitely not a movie that the younger kids are finding. Like Back to the Future is a movie that young kids like.
Well, here's the thing about the 80s. There was a lot of cocaine.
There was a lot of cocaine, yes.
Yeah.
That pretty much explains it right there.
I can't imagine Crocodile Dundee is particularly timely today.
Yeah.
Probably outdated.
I didn't think I would feel this way, but now I'm kind of curious to watch it again just to see how it would stand up. More importantly, I would love to watch it with somebody like who is a young person just to see what their reaction would be to it.
Right.
But I don't have young people handy like Professor Wilson, so maybe you'll have to do that, Professor Wilson, and report back to us.
We can both do an experiment. I'll watch it with my granddaughter. You can watch it with your kids, and we'll see what.
Yeah.
I'm deep into Euphoria now, so a little darker. Yeah.
A little darker, yeah. I can't imagine. I don't know how it would hold up, but yeah. And what's interesting though, on a side note, and Larry, you can cut this if you need to, but I just watched a 1974 spy thriller with John Voight called The Odessa File last night. Yeah, and it was weird because it was John Voight hunting Nazis instead of being friends with them, which is
what he does now.
Which he does now. And then, but I have to say, he was a very young man at the time, but they had to age him up 20 years for the spy stuff at one point. And it actually looked like older John Voight. Like I thought they did very good on the makeup. I just have to say that. But yeah, Odessa File has a great ending, by the way. So streaming free on Tubi.
It's been a long time since I've seen that.
But anywho, but we're not here to talk about Odessa File. We're here to talk about Humpty Dumpty in Oakland. So there is controversy on that is the first thing we need to talk about in the writing and publication history is when this was written. Now, there is another book we're going to talk a lot about today, which is there was a manuscript for a novel that in 1955 Phil turned in to SMLA on October 17th, 1955. And that is called A Time for George Stavros. That manuscript has since been lost, which is one of the reasons why I wrote about it in Unfinished. The thing is, I do think he finished it because according to what we know, it became Humpty Dumpty in Oakland 5 years later. And we'll get into exactly all the reasons why we think that it's the same thing. But A Time for George Stavros was written immediately after The Man Who Japed. So he, wrote The Man Who Japed for the Cold Hard Cash, and then turned his attention to.
It was a good book, though.
Yeah, which is one we are all big fans of The Man Who Japed. At least I know Larry and I are.
Me too.
Yeah, The Man Who Japed is a really good science fiction novel. And so then he wrote Time for George Stavros. And we'll get into the differences between these two novels, but for Al in Humpty Dumpty appears to have been very Greek in this first draft. It's almost like the same story, but it was very focused on the fact that this character was a Greek immigrant, or that was something that apparently the first version.
Now, is there some Greek relation to PKD we should know of?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
And then
there's nothing that stands out.
Yeah. My theory on that is that maybe he knew somebody that he was writing about.
Yeah.
There was somebody in Berkeley that he encountered or something who inspired this.
But he has several Greek characters in this book. So.
Yeah. Well, you'll see here in a little bit, because I know Professor Wilson reads the notes. I don't know that you do. But
never have.
You don't have to. I'm not. That's not shade. I'm just saying. I think this is the same novel, is what I'm saying. Is I do think that he greatly punched it up or whatever, but it's pretty much the same novel. And so the manuscript for George Stavros.
Wait, this is the punched up version?
This is the punched up version. Yeah. Or changed version. It's not necessarily better. We don't know. But we'll get to that in a little bit. But the manuscript for George Stavros has been lost. And that we know that, how we know that it was read, that it was submitted, that it went around, is there was an editor that he had a back and forth with named Eleanor Dimoff. We've talked about Eleanor before because she was the one who almost published a couple of these mainstream novels. We talked about her in the Puttering About in a Small Land episode, for example. And according to the Pink Beam Companion, this novel was rejected at some point before February 1st, 1960. And so some of these quotes you'll see, Phil talks about this original draft, and what we know about the George Stavros is mostly from these letters to Eleanor Dimoff, because Phil respected Eleanor enough that that he took her commentary to heart and seemed to want to change the novels. Now, we went deep earlier into who Eleanor Dimoff was. She was a very powerful editor at Harcourt Brace Publishing House in New York. And she was a very powerful editor through the mid-'60s. I think she passed away at some point there. I was more versed in it when we did our Puttering About, because I did a lot of research about her for Unfinished, about like who she was and what she did. Some of it's a little hazy to me now, but she was, getting letters from her. Phil respected her point of view, is what I'm saying. So we also have a short review from a reader at SMLA. We've talked about this with Barry Maltzberg too. They had a system there. Whenever one of their novelists or writers sent in a story or a novel, they had a group of people who read the stories in the office, and they would fill out what's called a green card. where they would make comments, to the agents up the chain, like, this is what I think of this work. This is who I think it should go to. This is what needs to be done, that kind of thing. So we do have a green card for, I believe, Humpty, or it might be Stavros. But anyways, we have a green card for one of them. We've read part of the green card. We don't have it. Paul Williams had it. So, I know Greg Rickman had access to a bunch of these green cards.
Right.
So, we did get an assessment from, so the green card from 1956. So this would have been for Stavros. We have access to. Professor Wilson, do you want to read what that green card from 1956 said?
Sure. And so this is for
Stavros.
Okay, got it. Yep. Didn't like this before and still don't. Long, rambling, glum novel about a 65-year-old Greek immigrant who has a weakling son, a second son about whom he's indifferent, and a wife who doesn't love him. She's being unfaithful to him. Nothing much happens. Guy, selling garage and retiring, tries to buy another garage in a new development, has a couple of falls, dies at the end. The point is murky, but seems to be that world is disintegrating. Stavros is supposed to be a symbol of vigorous individuality, now a lost commodity.
So there's a couple things we can discern from that. One is that this was a second draft, a second version that was sent in because I didn't like this before. So it's likely that this is a second draft of Stavros that they read. Secondly, the affair, I don't really remember. There's no affair in Humpty, right? So, my guess is that one of the things that Phil got lots of notes on is that the affair wasn't interesting to the story, or you've done that a bunch of times, or what. But the affair is one of the things that doesn't exist in the later draft. Plus, we get a little bit of detail here on who Stavros was, where it says, like that he's a Greek immigrant and he has a son. There's a weakling son. We didn't, that wasn't in the.
There's a son-in-law. I don't know.
Yeah, but Al kind of functions as Jim Fergesson's surrogate son, right?
Yeah, sort of a.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Definitely.
then
Who he kicks around, yeah.
Yeah, and so he's supposed to be the symbol of vigorous individuality. So it's clear that there was a lot about George
So
Stavros.
much like Neil Cassidy.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot about Stavros as a character in that first draft, is that I think that novel was very focused on him. And what I would be interested to know is, I'm assuming this version, his new garage that he was going to move to, probably wasn't in Marin County, because Phil hadn't made that move yet, hadn't started to write about Marin County yet. So I'm assuming it was all set in Berkeley, Oakland, that kind of thing. But we don't know. That's just a guess.
Right? Yeah, I don't know why. It could easily be in Marin.
It could be in Marin.
Not like it's a mile away. I mean, it is literally a mile away, but it's just across the bay.
Yeah, but he hadn't really had a Marin County experience there. Oh, and by the way, I should mention, like, one of the things that happens on the Dick Hangouts that, for example, is, and you made me, or I'm thinking about this because of the Marin County thing, is like, sometimes Dick, lived up there, and when he lived up there, there were all kinds of weird things that happened. One of the things that has started to happen that Gil has been bringing to these hangouts is that every time we find a new picture of Phil that we've never seen before, like somebody will show up and say, like, oh, I found a new Phil picture. Well, Gil had a picture of Phil hanging out at the Western Parade in Marin County, and in the picture it's just Phil and Ann and Laura as a little girl sitting on the corner watching a horse go by in this parade. And it's funny because we have so few pictures of Phil relatively compared to how many pictures people take these days.
Right.
That we were all like, it was funny watching all these nerds on Zoom, like staring at this picture of him in a fucking parade, and we're all like looking for details, like, oh, like, Phil at the Western Parade. Who gives a fuck, right?
Even in his time, there's and for at the end of his career, there's surprisingly few photos of him. Do you know if he was averse to that in any way? Like, did he try to stay
No, I
clear
don't
of
think
it?
so. Because I mean, there are some pictures where he's just sitting there with his shirt off, like
Yeah,
on a chair. Like if he was the first having his picture taken, he might have like sat up or.
yeah, but he's probably stoned or something,
That's true. Anywho, um, this is the clearest indication of the differences between the two novels, but we'll see. There's a couple little more comments about what happens in the two. Um, but we do know, as unimpressed as they were, that SMLA submitted it to 23 publishers who all rejected it. The 24th publisher was Harcourt Brace, and it was Ellen Dimoff who expressed interest. She expressed interest in puttering about in a small way. She worked with Phil a little bit on these drafts, so we know it was we know that that George Stavros was at least rejected by February of 1960 because he wrote a letter on February 1st, 1960 to Eleanor Dimoff where he talks about Stavros. So this would have been February, and he submitted the next draft that would be Humpty Dumpty in Oakland in October. So, 8 months later? So, at this point, he's living in Marin County. He might still be I don't know if he's with Anne yet. I don't know on that timeline. That would be a Gil question. But anyways, Professor Wilson, do you want to read that PKD said to
does it
Eleanor
start?
Dimoff?
I have been that one there.
Yep.
Yeah. I've been contemplating what you say about my Stavros book. I feel that it is the weakest of the lot, that the ending falls apart, but I agree that Stavros himself is a fine character. Why you should have such special fondness for that book, I can't make out. All I can do is agree that yes, I do think there's a better book to be made out of the character, some of the scenes, in particular the whole business where Stavros travels up to see the construction going on, runs into Carmichael, falls and has a heart attack, etc. And the scene where he fights with Andrew. So let's get down to business. I'll outline my reaction to the concrete notions which you present.
Yeah. So there's a lot here that did not happen in Humpty. And first of all, it's funny because the whole thing in this letter is he's talking about Stavros as being like, oh yeah, he's an interesting character. We should do more with him. And he's not in Humpty Dumpty in Oakland. So what happened in the 8 months where he was like, went from, yeah, I think you're right, he's a really good character, to I'm going to eject the character that's really good and interesting and keep the story with a more boring version.
Well, maybe it was a very similar character, it just got rid of the Greekness.
Yeah. That could have
I mean,
been
everything else about the character could have been the same.
Yeah. So then there's some things like seeing the construction going on, falls and has a heart attack, and a scene where he fights with Andrew. I don't remember a character named Andrew off the top of my head, but
It's probably just Al with a different name.
yeah. So well, I'm thinking the fight with Andrew, the similar scene might be the one where he's where he gets into the drunken argument with his black friend.
But that's Al.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, they have the argument, and then the wife comes out and says, like, you guys shouldn't be
Because
talking.
Fergesson won't even talk to a black person. That's the.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe I confusing that a little bit, but I think that's the fight that he's talking about, right?
Okay.
So
That's true. That I mean, the Stavros could have been the friend of the Doolittle or something like that. That could have changed as well. Who knows?
Right. Well, what we do know is that around this time, so like I'm not sure exactly what he was working on at this time, but it probably would have finished Confessions maybe around this time.
Hmm.
I'll have to look that up. Hold on.
No, then he would have been in Marin.
No, he was definitely in Marin in '60 when he did this
Oh,
second
okay.
draft. That's why I
But
thought
not
that.
not the original Stavros draft. Okay.
Right. And let's see. He had just redone Vulcan's Hammer when
Hmm.
when he worked on Humpty Dumpty in Oakland. So he just did the rewrite of an expansion of Vulcan's Hammer, and would have, I think, and then after this, he went into that fallow period before he wrote Man in the High Castle to get out of doing jewelry. So this was
Right.
between Vulcan's Hammer and Man in the High Castle,
When Anne sent him out into the shed.
where she sent him
Yeah.
out into the shed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for all we know, this is the first, and this might have been one of the first books written in the Hovel. For all we know,
Actually, I have to correct that. He decided on the shed himself, but she supported it.
yeah,
Yeah.
because I guess he was grumpy and hard to deal with when
Right. Hey,
when
I
he was
get it.
working on this.
I need a shed myself. Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. So one of the few people who read both books was Anne Dick. And it's believed, according to Anne, she says they're 95% the same novel. That was the number she used. 95% the same novel. And it does appear that Eleanor Demoff did pay for Phil to write the revision. So he did get paid to work on this book, and yet they still rejected it. Now that happened back then from time to time. You'd get a small amount of money on a contract to do, an outline or a part of a book, and sometimes the publishers would eat that money if they didn't think book was right. So and Humpty Dumpty in Oakland, I think is as close to George Stavros as we're going to get, because that manuscript was definitely lost. I don't know. How do you guys feel about George Stavros being lost? Do you think that's? I mean, that's not. There's a couple manuscripts that got lost, and this is not one I cry about.
Yeah, it sounds like we pretty much got it anyway.
Yeah. Now,
Manuscripts if a manuscript that gets lost, no matter who wrote it, usually, in my experience, it's best lost.
yeah.
You know?
Well, the one that got lost that makes me very angry and I'm very upset about is Nicholas and the Higgs, which would have been Phil's long. It was, when it was written, it was Phil's longest novel. It was practically a doorstop. He didn't consider it science fiction, but when you hear it described, it definitely was science fiction. He thought of it as a more mainstream novel. And
What's a Hig?
I don't know. It's a thing in the novel. I don't know.
Is it like a surname or is it an alien or something?
No.
I don't like it. I don't like that name.
Well, it doesn't matter because it's lost, so you don't have to worry.
I don't like that.
But Nicholas and the Higgs, of all the ideas and all the concepts for the novels where the manuscripts were lost, that's the one where when I read about it, I was like, "Shit, that sounds great."
Hmm.
And
when was he working on it? What years?
it was late 50s, yeah. So, and it was very thick manuscript, and but he didn't finish it. So, or I mean, he did finish it, but he never published it, and that manuscript was lost. And of all the ones, it's funny because like if you look at like. I just keep thinking to myself, like he saved the man whose teeth were all exactly alike, but he didn't save Nicholas and the Higgs. Like, what the fuck? I don't know. It kills me. It kills me. But nonetheless, it's there. So
We could do a podcast debating which title is better or worse, Nicholas and the Higgs or A Man Whose Teeth Are All Exactly
Yeah,
Alike.
right.
I'm not just talking the title.
Yeah.
We all know that Phil had terrible titles, so the titles doesn't matter. Because I mean, for all we know, he could have called it Earth's Diurnal Course for the third time. For all we know. But
Right.
all right, so we have one more PKD quote where he gets really into George Stavros, Professor Wilson.
I see two quotes here, but just hopefully it'll come together. George Stavros is as good a character as any I have produced. Right there?
Yep.
Yeah. There is as much chance that he could be the basis of a successful book as any character, so I would be willing, even pleased, to start with him as a premise in this work. I will then. Oh, okay, that's the first one.
Yeah.
And then he says, I will then scrap the book called A Time for George Stavros, withdraw it, and take it apart. I'll save the theme that here is an old man with enormous appetite, wit, and tenacity, kind of genius, yet hopelessly ignorant of the contemporary ways by which men rise to economic and social success. I'll saddle him with the physical defect of a failing heart and equip him with an animal-like cunning, an ability to spar, fight, scrap, and wrestle, and an ability to see through humbug, the pretensions of others.
Yeah, so that was his intention in a letter to Ellen Dimoff about like, hey, I'm gonna fix this, and she apparently did not think so. But what's interesting is, and I wonder how you guys feel about this, but my thought is it's less about the individual novels. Is that I think Eleanor Dimoff just eventually didn't have faith in Philip K. Dick as anything other than a science fiction author, because she didn't publish any of these, So it's one thing for her to reject one, but to reject.
Which one would you publish so far? I mean,
yeah. I mean, I do really like Confessions in and of itself.
Confessions did get published, though.
It did. That's the one that did. But these are all kind of, yes, they're nuanced, but it's kind of recycling the same suburban narrative.
Yeah, they all have very good points, but they just don't coalesce into, something readable for the reader, I don't think.
Well, I will say that I think the best of the lot is Puttering, personally.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I like Confessions best because of the violence at the end.
Well, no, eliminating Confessions.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Confessions is obviously the best one.
Yeah. And that was published in his lifetime, so I think it's not in the same lot of what we're gauging.
No, I love that book.
Yeah, and I'll get into my thoughts on the pros and cons of Humpty as we go, but like, I'm not saying I would have published any of these. I don't know that I would have if I was her. I'm not saying she made the wrong call, but what I'm saying is I'm not sure that she was rejecting any of these novels individually. I'm saying that I think she just looked as a whole, and she's like, there's something interesting here. He's almost there, but I think she just didn't.
Well, she worked with him enough but apparently she didn't get what she wanted.
Yeah, she tried. I think she was working with him to get it, and that's okay. That happens sometimes,
Yeah.
You're just not on the same page, whatever.
That's my sense, though. You said the words "almost there." When I read the mainstream novels, that's kind of how I feel. They are, don't get me wrong, I'm entertained. I enjoy them. I wouldn't seek them out if they weren't written by Philip K. Dick. But I do get the sense that there's something missing, like at the core of those.
Yeah.
But it's almost there,
Right.
And I think my biographical interest in Philip K. Dick, not biological, My biographical interest in Philip K. Dick is what makes these books interesting for me. I don't know that I would find them interesting if I wasn't so interested in his life, because to me, I'm constantly looking for, oh, what was this inspired by?
I think what they lack is focus.
Yeah.
To me, that's what it seems like, because they seem like they're trying to go somewhere, but they never really sort of coalesce into that point that, you know, that he's whatever vision he had for the novels, he doesn't seem to actually pinpoint it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, so we'll get into the details here in a moment, because I think that's all we have on the writing and publication history. So what happened is, you know, it got rejected in 1960. It sat in a drawer, and Phil's somehow it ended up with Paul Williams and Encinitas. And, you know, in 1986, it was first published in the UK, and with a hardcover in the UK. And in the 90s, Tor published it as a paperback. I believe this was the first paperback edition, but I could be wrong about that, from Tor. I don't know that they did a bunch of printings of Humpty. But it's interesting to look at. I guess there is a little bit more to say, because there's some interesting things about how it's marketed. So I do want to talk about that. So the blurbs on here are very interesting. First of all, there's a subtitle where it says Humpty Dumpty in Oakland is a tragedy, a dark comedy, and vintage Philip K. Dick. How do you guys feel about that description? Is this vintage Philip K. Dick?
No,
I think that's way off. But the other ones you could.
Tragedy, dark comedy.
I mean, it's amplified, but there's something to be said for it.
there is. I mean, yeah.
I mean, there's a
I know we're going to talk about it, but there's a lot of dark comedy in here.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so
and tragedy, of course.
The New York Times blurb on the front cover here says, "A kind of Pulp Fiction Kafka, a prophet." Does that have anything to do with Humpty Dumpty?
I think that's just about Phil K. Dick.
That's just about Philip K. Dick, right? Okay, so now on the back cover, there's a Entertainment Weekly blurb, and it says, "Grade A fascinating glimpse into how Dick's uniquely warped perspective evolved." How do you think? Is this a fascinating glimpse into how Phil's uniquely warped perspective evolved? I'm going to say no. I don't think this really adds anything to, but you know, I don't know.
There's the seed of that in there. You know, this just kind of hit me when I read, because we've read a few of these mainstream novels by now, and I had never, except for crap, read any of them.
Yeah.
Confessions, I should say.
Except for crap.
But my sense is, just as you were saying, David, I enjoy these for the way in which the science fiction author Philip K. Dick haunts these texts, but he haunts them very minimally. You know, we can see the Philip K. Dick in them because we're familiar with all that other stuff. But again, it's pretty minimal.
Okay, so the Kansas City Star has a blurb on here, and it says, "Would be ashamed to miss this. We all know that easy money rarely is, but it's a lesson worth reading about." Would it be a shame to miss this one? I don't know. You know, the easy money thing, I can see where this is kind of a Simple Plan-ish type, you know, story, and I can see that, but I'm not so sure it'd be a shame to miss this one. But
I like any mention of Marin County, so
yeah,
that to me was fun, and Sonoma, because I worked up at Sonoma State, so Petaluma and all those other places that he mentions. Novato is where I lived, and San Rafael is where I worked, and so I mean that's fun. It's not necessary, but it's fun.
This is a fun game, playing the blurbs, seeing how we
react to them.
Okay, Publishers Weekly said, This
I have-
paranoid, ambiguity-filled exploration into the psyche of the small businessman showcases not only Dick's wild imagination and sardonic wit, but also, most notably, his mastery at intertwining perception with reality.
Yeah, I can see that.
Publishers
I
Weekly
mean, for
going
the first,
for it.
first
Going
half
for
of the
the
book, I don't know if they read the whole book, but they at least got part of the way through the, maybe 50 pages.
They were really pushing the Philip K. Dick look at reality.
Because the first 50, to me, the book really switches from being about Fergesson to being about Miller.
Yeah.
About at that point, about 50 pages or so. And it's, to me, it takes on a totally different tone.
I did get a distinct sense, though, of, how those guys, I thought Dick did a good job of this, sort of perceive the world and their crazy.
Oh, yeah, he did a great job on that.
Yeah.
I think.
Now, there are 2 pages of blurbs in the front of here, and we have the New York Review.
Well, don't go through all of them.
I'm not going to go through all of them.
I threw the book across the room, so all I have is the
Pick
dust.
one more.
All I have is the dust jacket.
Well, there's the New York Review of Science Fiction. There's Book List, Associated Press. I'm going to go for this Book List one, which is Dick aficionados will recognize the familiar themes of psychosis, confrontation with umbilical powers that permeated his later work. As a formative novel, this book contains surprisingly strong writing and character development and reveals an interesting dimension of the Dick canon.
Did you say umbilical powers?
Umbilical. INIMICAL.
All right. No, I thought I like umbilical better.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
I was like, I'm going to use that expression.
Yeah, umbilical powers.
Dude, I mean, my dyslexia gives you a lot of fuel for words.
Are they feeding the lower classes? Is that what that umbilical power is supposed to be?
I don't know. One of these blurbs too, I saw it somewhere where somebody was like, if you're looking for science fiction, don't come here. But but yeah, I think it's interesting because obviously Tor put a lot of energy into sending arts out for Humpty to get reviews.
Right.
But I do think the perception of reality is not a thing that I saw on this, but I guess the argument could be made that the perception of reality, which Phil is always playing with, can be seen in how Al, Jim, all these guys are trying to manipulate reality to kind of twist people around for the easy money shit. So I guess it's a stretch, but sure,
By then, the review.
Jonathan Lethem has he has a really good blurb on this. Do you have that one, or is it?
No, the Jonathan Lethem one's not on my copy.
It says, it may be hard for some to accept that the same writer who recently snuck into the American canon as a visionary and paranoid pop surrealist also penned a half dozen or more proletarian realist novels set in the California of the 50s and 60s, the best of which occupy a region demarcated by Richard Yates on one side and Charles Wilford on the other, but accepted.
Oh, Jonathan, man, you are really blowing some smoke up there.
He knows how to write, though, that's for sure.
And I know he listens from time to time. So if you're listening, Jonathan, you really pumped up Humpty Dumpty.
That blurb.
Well, he wasn't writing specifically about Humpty Dumpty.
About it, but I gotta say, come on. Well done, I guess, pumping it up. But
well, I don't know. It's accurate, is it not?
That is accurate-ish. All right, so writing and publication history. Langhorne, are you ready? Because I really do have to pee.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Me too.
So I will listen. Well, I go to the bathroom.
All right, what are we doing?
I'm going
sir.
first.
Oh,
you, sir.
Are we doing the thing with the
writing
story breakdown? We're gonna do whoop whoop
whoop whoop. right, tell us what's going on while I pee.
All right, will do. All right, now that it's just you and me, audience, let's talk about these fuckers. No, let's talk about the book. Let's see. This is a novel about a guy named Jim Fergesson and his best friend / enemy, I guess frenemy, Al Miller, and their misadventures in Oakland and outlying areas. We begin in Ferguson's auto shop that he has just sold. And let me tell you a story about this. So Fergesson has a character aspect, let's call it an aspect, that I had a friend that had the same aspect. What he would do is we would be working and he would come up with a scenario that would piss him off. So he would be working and he'd be like, why isn't so-and-so doing this? They're probably thinking they're getting away with this and doing that. What an asshole. I should kick his ass. And he'd get pissed off about his own scenario he cooked up in his mind about what someone else was doing. But he'd be mad at the other person for it. And that's what Fergesson does with every single human being he comes upon. He's like, what? Why is this asshole thinking that I can't be rich? What a dick. And I think that's great. I love that aspect of his personality. And so anyway, he sold his business, his garage, for a hefty sum. And he's trying to tell people, and he gets upset at the way they react to it. And Al Miller, who rents a used car lot, basically a vacant lot that is part of the property, and sells used cars off of it, gets upset because he doesn't know what's going to become of his future now that Fergesson has sold the land. So what? Oh God. So there's a rich guy that comes along named Chris Harmon, who runs and this is one of the best jokes he has in this book, is he runs a place called Teach Records, and Teach being Blackbeard, which I didn't get it right away, but I felt like it was maybe leaning that way, but I didn't actually get it until it was explained to me.
Oh, because it's a pirate label.
Yeah, because it's a pirate label. It's just a good joke.
Dirty Records.
Dirty Records.
What is it? What kind of dirty records?
So Dirty Records, and I looked this up. Dirty Records.
Of course you did.
Were like Red Fox was a major contributor to Dirty Records, which was basically off-color humor for the most part, and like ribald songs and you know, just sexualized humor and that kind of thing.
Well, wasn't Red Fox was like really racy? I mean, he was
racy as hell with his jokes and stuff. But there's like, I listened to a couple of the albums or the songs, and there's songs like "Come Over But Don't Come Too Quickly." Let's see, what was another one? "Let Me Play With Your Poodle." You know, to us they're very innocent sounding, but like back then there was some way dirtier stuff too. There was like, you know, when you fuck me, you better fuck me right. That kind of thing. Yeah. And then there was those were the songs, and the humor was like, you know, when he's going down on you and he doesn't do it right, that kind of joke. Yeah. So, and
but he never I kept waiting for him to explain it more depth.
Here's the thing about those Dirty Records is I say Red Fox and stuff like that. It was a lot of black comedians and a lot of women comedians too. And songwriters and stuff like that. So it actually helped pave a path for black artists to get work and get in the public eye. So it actually had a positive outcome in the end.
Diversity and dirtiness.
Diversity, of course, it was labeled as dirty, but
yeah.
So anyway.
Oh, wow. You really want to get away from the story, don't you? You'd much rather talk about this.
Yeah, right. So Chris Harmon comes along, and he runs Teach Records, which does sell dirty records, but basically they pirate all their masters, and they're a big company, but they're a pirate operation. So he's a criminal, and Al Miller, who's sort of floating along in life, sort of reminds me of Emilio Estevez in Repo Man. Doesn't really know what he wants to do with his life, and is just sort of floating along, you know. And he decides he's going to blackmail Harmon, but he doesn't do it directly. So he talks to his friend Tootie Doolittle to give him a call. Tootie Doolittle being a middle class black guy who seems to know about all these criminal activities. And so he calls and says, "We know what you do with the dirty records. We know it's illegal." And Harmon plays it off. That's the end of that chapter, let's say. Meanwhile, Fergesson goes and looks at some land in Marin, and he sold his garage because he has a heart condition. And while he's looking at this land in Marin County, he falls down, has a mild heart attack, but doesn't tell anybody. Classic Archie Bunker behavior. And that's how I pictured him in my head, like a less
racist.
Not less racist. Less charming.
Archie Bunker?
Racist.
He's less charming than Archie Bunker.
Oh, okay.
He's a less charming Archie Bunker.
He's not as racist as Archie Bunker.
I don't know. He doesn't even talk to black people. So,
at least in terms of rhetoric.
That's yeah. Maybe he just had less opportunity.
Yeah, could be.
So Fergesson has this heart attack, but he's bound and determined to go into business with the crooked Harmon on this land deal where he can open a big garage and he can basically live his life dream of being the boss, which Harmon basically fed to him. That's your life dream. Meanwhile, Miller is cooking up his scheme, and he gets high on some pills and goes in for a job interview with Harmon, ends up doing a really good tap dance on his skills and his experience, and it's amazing what Dexedrine will do for you. And
one of the better scenes.
He just kind of slips that in there, you know. Yeah. It doesn't make a big deal out of it, and you just got to take some drugs over here.
I just got to.
We'll talk about drugs
do some
later.
uppers and downers, and then everything will balance out.
Yeah,
and I'll be good to go.
So get there.
Anyway, so Al gets this job. His wife has given him pressure. Ferguson's wife hates his guts. He's sort of a drifter and not a very bright guy, but he's okay. Here's the thing. Everybody thinks that Miller has some hidden skills or hidden talents, which are never evident in the book at all. But constantly people are like, I know you have good skills and you can do this thing and you can do that thing. But this dude can't do anything. He is an utter failure in every sense of the word, which lends some of the humor, let's say. Anyway, so
except when he's on drugs, then he can talk.
Yeah, then he's badass. So Al gets this job, but he's worried about the old man spending his life savings with this crook Harmon, even though he's now working for Harmon. And so there's this big confrontation at Harmon's house where he says he's part of an organization that is going to drop Harmon, get him arrested, get his whole operation shut down and all this stuff. Basically talking out of his ass because, you know what, that part, I don't know why he's doing it, but I hope these guys can explain it to you because I sure as hell can't. I was lost at that point. I know he does some feeble attempt to help the old man save his money by saying he has a fake checkbook. So anyway, this whole confrontation happens. then Harmon's people go after him. They wreck his car. They make his wife lose her job, or we're led to believe. And then Fergesson dies. Ferguson's wife gives Miller $2,000. So he skips town with his wife. His wife says, fuck you, after a bit. And he gets arrested, brought back to Oakland, talks to a lawyer, gets released, and then goes back to his place, talks to Harmon, and then I threw the book across the room. So I don't know what happened in the last 10 pages. Anybody know what happened in those last 10 pages?
He straight up says, well, we'll get there, but he says the title outright.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, there's a couple of lines there where it's.
Yeah, there's a couple of lines there. We'll get there. All right,
good.
so let's talk about
That's it. I threw the book across the room.
You'd had it by then?
Yeah, had it by then. Well, I will tell you this. It's interesting because from a biographical perspective, Phil was in a very different place when he wrote the first draft to this final draft by living in Marin County. He went from being, living in a pretty urban area of the flatlands of Berkeley to sitting at Western parades with his new wife and her daughters. So yeah, it's a very different place, and it's interesting that he's still writing about Oakland and Berkeley. But let's go over the themes that I have marked. So, as always, I have a couple themes. First, California stuff. Okay. Then I have characters, race, and what exactly is he trying to say?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Those are the things. So we start with California stuff. There's a lot of commentary about California in this book, as you can imagine. And some of it gets into descriptions of people and places. So what did you guys think about this description of the Bay Area that we get from this book? I think, he's mostly writing about Oakland, and Berkeley, for those who don't know, border each other. So, there's parts of those two cities where they're right up against each other. So it's hard to tell where you're at.
It's weird for me to hear, because most of the stories we hear coming from San Francisco, the Bay Area, come from San Francisco, right?
Right.
They're based from San Francisco, and occasionally they'll go to Oakland, or occasionally they'll go to Marin or Berkeley, or any of those, basically what I consider the outlying places, because San Francisco is the center. But to PKD, Berkeley is the center, and everything sort of spans out from there. So I think it's interesting to hear stories that are from that perspective.
Yeah, and the garage and everything about the garage that it represents is that it's on this strip of San Pablo Avenue. That
the bad part of town.
San Pablo Avenue is a street that starts in Berkeley and continues on into Oakland. I know about it because the street San Pablo is the street where, if you were at the Francisco House where the first draft of this was written, San Pablo is the most major street to the east, I believe, of the Francisco House. I could have the directions wrong, but it's the next major street. So the Lucky Pet, or the Lucky Dog pet food store where he was supposedly buying the horse meat to eat, was on San Pablo Avenue. Okay. So San Pablo Avenue heads into Oakland, and there's some really, it's not a bad area in Berkeley, but when you get into Oakland, there's some pretty, especially in that time, there would have been some shitty neighborhoods that you would have been going through. And so it's interesting because I get the impression that this garage is right on the line between Oakland and Berkeley. Not the worst spot, right?
No, but definitely leaning towards the worst part of town.
Yeah. So it's important to note this because it's not like Jim Fergesson gave Al Miller the fucking best spot to
Ritz
sell
Carlton.
Yeah, he's not setting him up right down the street from the university. This used car lot is not in the best neighborhood. It's not the worst neighborhood, but it's not the best neighborhood. But that is something to know, that if I hadn't had the experience of going to the Bay Area, I might not know that, right? But I know that now, so I kind of understand a little bit more about like what it's saying about this area. I don't know that he does the best job of describing that. Did you get that, Professor Wilson, as somebody who's not spent time in Berkeley? Did you feel you
So
understood?
no, I didn't. And I was just thinking, excuse me, California, of course, is so important to Philip K. Dick. And I mean, geez, I'm more familiar with Europe than California. California is about as alien to me as any place. I've been to LA a few times, but that's about it. Um, so there's quite a bit that I miss that you guys get, or that
Yeah.
anybody who reads Dick misses if they haven't been put in that, sort of California context. So
Which
most
is
of
an
it goes over
argument for
my head.
coming to Gill's weekend, by the
What's that?
way. Which is an argument for coming to Gill's
Oh,
weekend
right.
where we tour around the Bay Area.
But don't you think, I mean, you probably take it for granted just because, I mean, obviously both of you are in that context.
Exactly. Yeah, I
Yeah.
do think so. And I just thought that that's the first thing that I really wanted to bring up about this novel and the themes was like what the location of this garage says
Oh,
about the garage itself, or the garage in the used car lot, like what the location says. Because I wondered if I was reading more into it than somebody who has no context for it. So that was why I wanted to ask, because I don't know that I would have got that if I had been on San Pablo Avenue 2 years ago, like checking out.
he does say in the text that it's not a good neighborhood,
Yeah,
but
and he does
it's
describe
in
like,
passing. It's in passing, and it's not
well, there.
not something he concentrates on or
I would say he
embellishes
does
on.
it by talking about the loan shops, um, the Metropolitan Oakland Savings and Loan Company. They were talking about like the,
But then when
there
you
is a
think
health
of
food store there.
then when you think of the health food store and the barber shop across the street, you're thinking middle America at that point,
Yeah.
right? Sort of like California version of middle America with the
I
health
like that he
food
got the
shop.
coffee at the health food store because now it'd
Yeah.
be mushroom coffee, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah. So there's some interesting things there. Now on page 32, I liked. I'm going to read this. He's talking about going to the Oakland Public Library, and he says,
Shout out to the library.
"Yeah." He's talking about his wife and how she spends time at the library, and says, "It's the Oakland Library that she supported, not me. It's the University of California and those professors, especially those students in sweaters. They dress nice and keep their nails cut. So, how about that, you academic college snobs?"
Yeah, but as a mechanic, you would keep your nails cut too. So
Yeah, keep your nails cut.
yeah,
I thought this
Professor Wilson, you missed this, but I was talking about a guy I used to know that I used to work with that would come up with scenarios in his head, but he'd get actually pissed off at the person for the scenario he cooked up in his head.
Yeah.
And that's what Fergesson does. Is he cooks up a scenario in his head and then he gets pissed off at the person for it.
right.
Like, I can't believe that Al wants me to be poor like him. What a son of a bitch.
Yeah. And that's what I liked. We were talking earlier about how Dick, does a good job of conveying how these guys look at things. That's what I really liked about it. Yeah.
And
That was one of my favorite parts was that sort of that dark humor of him being just such an asshole about it.
And it's kind of like, it's mind
That's the
racing essentially. I can really empathize with that. I do that all the time.
Oh, do you?
I got at least three voices up there talking to each other.
Yeah, right.
well, and that's the Dickian perception of reality and paranoid ambiguity that we heard in all the blurbs.
That's
if
true.
You really want to get to it, that's where it exists in this novel.
Well, that's what I was saying, is that the Fergesson really, to me, he's the central character of this. He's the more interesting person that I wanted to hear. I wanted the story to follow him way more than Miller, who didn't interest me at all.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I do think Miller, he plays with
Which I'm looking at Lord Runningclam's thing right now, and he's the exact opposite. He's like, all this boring stuff about Fergesson, I don't want to hear about it. Let me hear more about Miller.
Right. Well, and what I liked about this thing about going about the college snobs is I think this, Phil had to be around a lot of students and at the record store and he was around that, but he washed out of the university, right? So I have a feeling that he had those thoughts a lot. So
a little bit bitter.
Yeah, I thought that bitterness was there, and I thought that was a real thing.
Yeah, I didn't think about Phil being bitter. I thought about Fergesson being bitter.
Yeah, but I think there was just a tiny little bit there. I think but I could be wrong.
But I mean, we all have experiences with students. I mean, you're a teacher. You're a teacher. I was a teacher. So.
Yeah. Well, I
don't know how bitter you guys are about students, but
I have autistic kids throwing chairs at me, so I don't know what you're talking about as far as
Yeah, I've been relegated to teaching online. I just grade papers and respond to emails.
I had to keep people from cutting their hands off, so
that's true. Different. But so next I have page 46 and 47, where we get some really good stuff about Oakland and Berkeley. So this is Al Miller. He would be preempted for some grand purpose. The new owner would tear down the garage and put up a supermarket or a furniture mart or a multiple unit apartments. Such has been the pattern for several years in Oakland and Berkeley. Old buildings were torn down, even churches. And if old churches had to go, then surely Ferguson's garage could be thrown in, and Al's motor sales. And then, he's talking to Lane, the Lane Realty lady, and he says, I'm looking for a new location. And she says, on San Pablo, I have a lot on Telegraph Avenue. She looked at him searchingly. Searchingly is a weird word.
He does that a lot in his early writing, huh?
Yeah. To see what is he wanted. And he said, I don't care where it is, just so it's a good location. So Telegraph Avenue, again, that's the main strip of Berkeley near the university. So that's different. That's a very different place. And that would be,
how so?
Ursula Le Guin's parents would be driving by on their way to their big house from the university.
Nicer area.
Oh, just more money. Yeah.
Yeah, more. So that would definitely be more money.
Do you think Mrs. Lane had a thing for Al Miller?
No, I think she had a thing for selling realty to him.
Really? I thought she was.
I don't know. Something's going on there.
Yeah, she gave him more respect than I think he deserved. But
wait a second.
But she was always wanting to drive him around, and
at the end, he has his arm around her in the car, like they're dating.
I think that's. I don't know. I don't know, but we'll get to more of that later. But
we're
I
always
like what
getting
you're saying about how Berkeley and Oakland are changing. That all these buildings are coming down, and even churches are coming down, and they're going up. And
that's boring as fuck. Everybody still says that shit.
Everybody does still say all this shit, but it's it's that
I'm in a San Diego group on Facebook that is nothing but people saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe they're tearing this down. I can't believe they're tearing that down."
I
It's
know my
annoying,
hometown's the same way, Bloomington, in
right?
Indiana. Like oh, all the new apartment buildings, but the expansion of the university. This was a major time for that in the late 50s and early 60s. So, um, I just I'm
A second
fascinated
manifest
because
destiny.
well, yeah, but I am fascinated by Phil thinking about these things and writing about it from Marin County now. Like now he's out of it. He's not living there anymore, but he's writing about Berkeley. Um,
Well, how do you know that? Wasn't it already written?
well, yeah, that sentence could have been in the original draft from 55, or it could have been from the 60 draft, and we don't know. And that is an interesting thing to think about too. Was that sentence originally in the 55 draft? Was he thinking about that in 55, or was he thinking about it in 60? And it is interesting, and we'll never know. It is both interesting and unknowable.
Right.
It's like the Donald Rumsfeld unknown no, the unknown
Unknown,
knowns.
unknown knowns.
Well,
Yeah,
what would
we've
we
got
do
some
with that?
unknown knowns here, and we don't know.
What would we do with that knowledge if we came into possession with it in any case?
Well, you know, write stupid
Yes.
essays that only we care about. Um, yeah, I'm not saying we would get a lot out of it, but we're still talking about California.
But we would, I mean, maybe more for his frame of mind behind writing this thing.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, that's it. So the next part of California commentary comes from page 66. And Harmon's talking to I believe Fergesson about Marin County. And he says, that's where the growth is, not here, not in the East Bay. The master plan, he laughed. There's still no room. The East Bay is filled up. So is the peninsula. The only place you can grow is in Marin County. I'm imagining he heard this many times. But, and he talks about Highway 101. And since we're going up there next month with Gil, I made note of him mentioning a shopping center on Highway 101 outside of San Rafael in Petaluma. So he's talking about all these like different tract home divisions in different places. One of the funny things is one of the things Gil's new employer, who's buying up all these properties in Point Reyes, is that they're actually trying to preserve these places. This guy that hired Gil to be his reality investigator, right, is trying to preserve a lot of these buildings still exist. And there's parts of these Marin County small communities that haven't changed since then. And they're trying to preserve it. But it is interesting, this idea that I don't know if Phil was being told by someone in the Bay Area, like, hey, there's no growth here. You should go move out there. That's where things are happening. That's where things are growing. I'm imagining lots of people talked about that then. So that is fascinating and interesting to read in this text, in my opinion. Any thoughts?
I don't remember Marin being like a big growth area.
Yeah, it's was seen as,
but also he talks about the Air Force Base opening up in Novato. I lived there when it was closing down. So,
yeah. Well,
so it wasn't open that long.
Okay, I've only got one more thing about California in the geography, which is on page 164 and 165, after he gets this job going out for the record label and scouting. I love this idea that he's driving around scouting for barbershop quartets and these little tiny.
That's insane.
Hilarious. That's funny.
I mean, I loved that, but
I thought about that. I thought that would be right up your alley.
Yeah, I did like that. I mean, that was supposed to be a crazy idea, right?
So bizarre.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
I didn't know if there was any sense of normativity to that. I'd be surprised.
That he'll be going out and finding these. Well, and he says here,
you have to consider he's doing this during the doo-wop era. So sort of there is sort of a reason for it, but not really a
but it's so thought out, you know. I mean, what I was thinking
It's
is that,
ridiculous at the same time as it makes sense.
yeah, absolutely. But
Yeah.
I was thinking like, yeah, Dick really has thought about this. You know, he's really teasing it out.
Like where would you go if you were
Here's what
looking
we're
for a
going to do with you,
barbershop
Al.
quartet?
Here at Teach, we're going to send you into the small towns that you know so well, and you're going to sit in on different barbershop groups until you find us the ones who amount. You're going to get in touch with our A&R man, and we'll team up there with Ampex tape recorder and some kind of piece of paper, and we'll get them down on tape. It has nothing to do, and then there's some blah blah blah, and then there's nothing to do with musicianship. We're recording sound like sports car exhausts, which has been one of our best-selling items, incidentally. Sounds out of Sebring. So like they're selling recordings of car exhausts. Like I guess on YouTube I pull up ambient sounds to write to sometimes. So
but I was curious about his job because, you know, it sounds like he's going to be this agent and a salesman or whatever he's supposed to be, sort of a talent agent. And then they hand him the keys and they're like, "You're the driver."
Yeah, so what I think is interesting from a California perspective is that he's driving around California scouting these little towns.
But is he doing the scouting or is the other guy doing the scouting and there's a tech there as well?
Bob Ross, you mean?
Yeah, Bob Ross.
Yeah.
That's pre Bob Ross, right?
Yeah.
Now, here's my question for y'all, and I think you already kind of answered this, Professor Wilson, but to me,
why do you guys keep calling me Professor Wilson all the time? That's with irony, right?
Partially.
No.
Yes. Also, because we're both named David, we need
oh, right, gotcha.
Yeah, or Big D. We could do that, but I like Professor Wilson. I'm putting respect on that name.
I'm hated as a professor now. Yeah, I got to come up with something else.
I'm trying to put respect on that name, sir. But here's the thing. That to me would have been a great novel. That's the novel I want to read, right?
Yeah.
Well, we did get to read that novel, sort of. I mean, it was part of the simulacra. Was the team, but they were going into the backwoods to find the weird opening sound. Yeah, the
classical,
not the jug bands, but they were finding the Neanderthal bands.
Yeah.
I guess. But what I think, I mean, there's a straight realist novel from that era of a guy going around finding barbershop quartets and maybe getting.
Okay.
Yeah, we got that, but he was selling typewriters.
Exactly. I will say that it's partially, if you could take Milton Lumpke territory and combine it with this,
right?
Actually have like a pretty decent novel. Not that I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go and write that novel. You know, I'm not gonna do it.
I don't know. I would prefer the jug band. That's a more
interesting novel than the one we got, right? I think, you know, him going around to the barbershop quartets, maybe doing a bunch of, you know, speed and like getting into trouble. And,
no, you're like a Killing Zoe. You go into Killing Zoe territory or something like that. But what would be more believable? I'm still having trouble, even in its historical context, believing in the viability of a barbershop quartet sort of, you know.
I'm telling you, it's just a takeoff of doo-wop.
Yeah, something closer to doo-wop, maybe the next because I don't think that Dick uses the term doo-wop, right? Like the next stage in doo-wop. Maybe he does.
Oh yeah. I think it does say something like that.
Oh, okay. It says different barbershop groups, but hold on, let me look and see if.
But a barbershop quartet, it's just, you know, geeky or something.
And I do like on the page beforehand where he's like, they're not intellectuals. They don't go to school. They didn't read Kant. They're just good, simple, nice guys who like to get together in the evenings and sing, which was interesting. But you know what was exciting for me about the reference to Kant is that I have a whole like part about Kant in Great American Dead World, And when I read that, I was like, okay, good. He did reference Kant at some point. um, and, it's funny because, I don't know, that part did make me laugh. I don't know, but he does, as far as okay. The next page, he says, the overtones Knight was saying, the harmonics. That's what the Budapest String Quartet is a band. So he's talking about barbershop. Yeah, he just calls them barbershop quartets. That's it. So, yeah, I don't know what to say about that other than I don't know. I think that's the novel I
I mean,
wanted
it was
to read.
funny. I liked it. I like little things like that,
Yeah.
For me, that's what really kind of makes these mainstream books, those little moments.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, on 160, Knight says, I sing barbershop. In fact, I got back from a barbershop balladeers
Right.
convention in El Paso, Texas. Shout out to Keith Giles from Choir, who lives in El Paso. So I think I sent a picture of this highlighted part.
Giles.
To Keith, yeah. Giles.
Giles.
I know. But yeah. And then there's some weird stuff here about the barbershop people being into Aristotle, and I don't know, there's some really weird shit there.
See, that's the thing. Yeah, you tease it out, you make them into a cult. They're doing
Right.
dark and strange and terrible
Yeah,
things.
there could be an interesting novel there. More interesting than this one, in my opinion.
Aliens.
All right, so now we're done with all the California stuff, unless you guys have anything else in California. And now we're going to talk about the characters. Do you have any initial thoughts on the characterization of Al, Jim, maybe Lydia? Any initial thoughts before I get into
Yeah. Al should have killed himself in the first fucking page. What a piece of shit that guy was.
I can tell.
I do like it. I think we really start to get to know Al early on when his first instinct after hearing that Herman makes dirty records is to blackmail him. Like that's the first thing he thinks of. And then he's like, I guess I'm an asshole, but it's really not a bad idea. And then he goes back and forth with himself.
Yeah,
I like that.
It's never a moral. It's never really a moral argument, is it?
No, he's just very matter of fact about it.
I think Dick is so smart that him trying to write a dumb character like that just sort of doesn't work because he still puts too much intellect into them. So you expect Al to know these things, but he's also supposed to be a total like blank slate, and he's not.
The way I don't know how to express, maybe I will express it. We'll see. The way I agree with you, and the way that Dick in particular writes Al, it's as if when I'm reading it, and partly it has to do with his transition sometimes between dialogue and between descriptions.
Yeah.
But there's an absence in there that he really does a good job of manifesting, and I don't know how to explain that absence. But the absence indicating this guy who is not particularly, not the instrument.
He does a good job. I think he does a good job when he says, Al, when he's in Al's head and he says, there didn't seem to be anything to say, or I couldn't come up with anything to say, or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just makes sense from like a person that's not attuned to like voicing their opinion or not too bright. They're just like, I'm just gonna stay quiet because that's the best thing I can do for myself is just not speak up. And Al does that a lot. He just doesn't say anything.
Do you think that he has an erratic way of thinking too, where he'll jump, just like with the blackmail thing? At one moment he's like, "This is terrible that I have this idea," and the next moment he's like, "That's not a bad idea." Do you think that's him trying to represent this guy who isn't really fully in control of his intellect, you know?
I think it might be. I think that's at least that's how I took it.
Yeah.
You know, I thought it was sort of a.
I mean, there's a bipolarity there that's
In
fundamental.
the first half of the book, this is what I thought. I thought, oh, Dick is doing what most authors do at some point early on in their career. And I didn't know when he wrote this, but I assumed early on in their career is they try to write characters that are totally different than themselves.
Mm.
Like the antithesis of them. And I thought Al and the other what's his face?
Jim.
Jim were the opposite of Dick.
You think?
Because Ferguson's like he's racist, he's pro Nixon, he's got all these right-wing viewpoints. And then Al is just sort of a depressed, nothing, vacant guy, right?
Yeah, like Phil's trying to write other people, he's trying to write.
In this book, I think he does a much better job of writing women. Because I felt
we'll
the
get
women.
to Lydia in a little bit, but
and there's several kind of women that he focuses on too.
Yeah, and they had and they come across more interesting than most of his women, I thought, anyway.
Yeah, I'll agree with that, because Lane, the realty lady, is interesting too.
Yeah, and I thought Julie was interesting in her way, and Lydia was interesting in her way, you know.
Yeah. So page 10, right off the bat, is where Fergesson, first he tells, he starts talking about his health, and then there's the funny thing where they're like, have you tried eating that rice diet? Which is funny. And then rice doesn't help what I've got, he said, at the crazy health food store with its vegetables and herbs. That's not dialogue. That's in the text. The crazy health food store with its
vegetables and herbs.
Which was hilarious. Crazy health food store. I couldn't get over that. That cracked me up.
What did people tend to? Now I think of my grandparents at that time. It was all like, canned goods and stuff.
Overcooked meat.
Yeah.
So I did
food.
Yeah. Crazy health, being crazy, but whatever. I only have a heart condition, so health food is crazy. And then so he says he's sold the garage, and then Al's, they had this whole thing where and I thought there was a really cool detail where Al's opening and closing the wrench while he's talking to him. I thought that was a really neat detail that was very subtle, but that was great writing.
Why? What do you think that as indicates or is symptomatic of?
He doesn't know what to say to him, and he's nervously fidgeting with the wrench while he's talking to him. And I thought that was just a really neat detail. Well, he's like listening to him. He says, opening
is the wrench the phallus?
Al stared at him. He did not look as if it meant too much to him, but the old man was.
But the opening and closing could be like different points of view, you know.
Yeah. Well, he's the guy's talking to him.
I'm saying there are multiple ways we could read that for sure.
Yeah. No, I just think
that's what makes it good, though, right?
Yep. But I highlighted that because I just thought it was a fucking great little tiny detail. Speaking as, I don't, okay, I'm not going to say it, Big D. You write very surreally. So when you write your fiction, you're not worried about realism. Whereas those of us who do try to write realism, we're always looking for little ways to say something about what the characters are thinking without having them say it. Sure. So I'm always looking for ways that somebody's, and you gotta be careful not to have them constantly sighing or constantly, doing these things. And so I just
it's always better to say he said, she said than he cried or.
Exactly. Yeah. But I just thought that was that was good writing.
Unless you're trying to make a point.
Yeah. And then he
He said vociferously.
So Al's in the situation where, he's supposed to be thinking, Jim comes to him and says, like, I'm not healthy. I can't keep this up. But he's like, you fucker, I have my garage here and I don't want to move. And then so he's having all those thoughts. So I think that's good character stuff. And, Al doesn't really know what he's going to do besides like having this lot. And he thought Jim needed him and they needed each other because, he was fixing Fergesson was fixing the cars for his lot. He was bringing people to the lot and all that,
Yeah, but even from the start, he says it's a dead end.
Yeah.
So
in the end, him moving.
And like his wife is like, go back to school, do something with your life. And he's like, man, nah.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do anything.
Right. So
But he's guided by
then blackmail.
Right. But he has that thought and then it kind of goes away and then he has another impulse and I'm going to do this now and he's just, he's like a kid. You're just guided by one, you ride the wave of one impulse to another.
Yeah.
So he introduces Lydia, and on page 30 it says Lydia had gone to college. In fact, she still took courses, some by mail, being able to speak Greek. She could translate philosophers and she knew Latin too. Her ability to learn foreign languages impressed him. But on the other hand, she had never been able to learn how to drive, even though she had gone to a driving school. So there's some interesting details here about Lydia as a character. Lydia doesn't seem to me like Al was never in her league. So it's a really interesting thing here, and I agree with you, Larry, that she's a more interesting character than Al. She's got these things. I wonder if her being able to speak Greek is a little leftover from Stavros.
Yeah.
Stavros draft.
It's likely. Yeah.
It's likely.
Yeah, because I thought that something was I didn't know about the Stavros backstory. I thought something was going to be done with the Greek aspect.
Yeah, because the lawyer's Greek as well. And then, but
it's just kind of a passing thing, it doesn't. Yeah.
And eventually Lydia does not put up with his shit and she leaves him. But it's just, I don't know.
No, Julie.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Did I have
Lydia can't leave Jim because he's.
Oh yeah, that's Lydia's. Oh yeah, I'm thinking of Al's. I confused these guys. And you.
All right.
Yeah. I did read this pretty much about a month ago. But yeah, all the female characters do have these interesting aspects to them. And then the next character piece that I have is I thought.
Do you think that he was trying to, when he was conceiving and composing this book, reach a female demographic of readers by, a broader one by putting more female characters in this? I'm trying to think of the other mainstream books that we've read and what the kind of ratio is there,
Right.
I don't recall as many female characters.
There's more female characters in this, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we know that
he
eventually.
Is there 4 main female or sort of main female characters in this? If you include Harmon's wife.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
There's definitely more emphasis on the women in the mainstream novels than the science fiction.
And they're so not just single tone, bitches basically is how he usually writes women. Just nagging constantly
divorcing
for no reason.
Women, I mean,
but these women have reasons for like the things they do.
Well, and that's if you think about his readership for his science fiction, sure, that works, right?
It does. I mean, it does.
It's dudes, right? But that's why I asked here. He's tapping a different readership.
Well, and maybe that's the influence of his editor too.
Could be. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So I mean, he was trying to sell to an editor who was a woman. So he may have been thinking.
Maybe you soften those characters to
Yep.
to appease.
So on page 44 and 45, and these are pages we'll come back to for race reasons. But for character stuff on these pages, there's a really interesting scene where Al goes, he's frustrated about a bunch of shit, and he goes back to the garage and starts tooling under a car. And,
Jim.
you know, and this is where you get into what Jonathan was talking about the working class proletariat literature is like, you know, Philip K. Dick was never a guy who like
got under a car.
You know, so he's writing about, you know, he's a guy that worked at a record store selling opera records, right? And it's funny because I remember when I had Sam Miller on, the author of Blackfish City and all that, he said that his reason for liking Phil was that, you know, he always wrote about the working class, right? And you know,
he doesn't do a bad job of it. I mean,
do a bad job of
he's
it.
not a member of the working class. He does a great job, I think.
And so,
you know what? It reminds me of that episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm where Larry David thinks he can be a car salesman. And you know what I mean? That's how I perceive Dick. That's what it would be like. He'd go in there and be like, "Fuck this."
Right.
Yeah, and you know, when there was nothing to watch on TV, or Lydia was out there. So this is this is Jim being at the garage. Yeah. And
he goes to the bar.
Instead of going in, there was no one to talk to, or things were not interesting at the Ring-a-Ding Club, he'd go in and work on cars. So, and this was.
I thought that's, you know, that's why I say I was so interested in Fergesson as a character. Like, all those little things about him were really interesting. From the not getting along with people to having that exact thing. That's a loneliness that he has, and, you know, not knowing what to do with that loneliness. I could relate to that stuff, and you know how I love to relate to things. So.
Well, on page 54 and 55 is where we get Harmon introduced, and Al talking to Jim about Harmon, and this is where we get the introduction of the dirty records as well. I don't know why I had this under character. Well, it is character stuff because...
Well, it's Harmon's character, I guess.
Yeah, Harmon's character too. But it's all coming between conversation between Jim and Al, and then he says, "Oh, that's the only thing he makes. That's just between you and me. It's not public."
Oh.
And he brought, and then he says he brought a box of dirty records. And so when he describes them, and this is what you looked up, Larry. I didn't do that. Mostly monologues. I listened to one. It's about Eva crossing the ice, you know, in Uncle Tom's cabin. Was it dirty? Real dirty, the old man said. Every word I ever heard, some guy was reading it. Harmon said it was a great comedian who writes a lot. Or wrote a lot. He said the guy was dead, I think. For all the major magazines, but some real famous guy. You would have recognized the name, Bob something. So this is all the introduction to the dirty record stuff.
What is both of your senses of Harmon? Like what kind of guy he is? Did you get a distinct?
Yeah, he was
not as
a hard
rounded as the others.
He was a hard one to read.
Yeah. He seems like not that bad of a guy.
No, he does.
You know? And I don't think he's really doing anything that bad.
I think he's detached from his business wrongdoings, if they are wrongdoings, which we're not ever really told if they are or not. But he seems like he's like his son-in-law says, you know, he's a rich guy, but you'd never know it by the way he treats people and the way he acts. And, you know, we're all invited over, and he doesn't treat anybody. He doesn't talk down to anybody, and he just seems like a good guy.
And the dirty records thing, you know, he kind of, the way he describes them, he perceives them as art.
Yeah.
You know, in the way that we might have looked at, like who all those folks that were writing like erotic, literary erotic stuff,
Mhm.
hiding their literary stuff in porn, basically.
Right.
Nin,
Well,
Yeah, right.
yeah, Harmon's. I don't. He's not really portrayed as a bad guy, just like a businessman or
Well,
whatever.
he is portrayed as the bad guy. I mean, that's
Of
or
course
at
he
least
is.
an obstacle. I mean,
yeah.
Al, yeah, he want,
So
To Al, he is the bad guy.
yeah.
yeah. So on page 57, we get and this is the part that you're cracking up about, Dee. The I'm just gonna read this because it's great. It was a wholly new idea for making money, the blackmail idea. What had Mrs. Lane said to him? Some damn thing about you. You got to act or miss out. And then I'm going to skip a little bit. And then he says, this was the ideal business opportunity. It took no capital, no stock, no fixtures, no investment of any kind, not even ads or business cards, nor a state tax franchise. But blackmail was wrong, and yet so was the used car business. Everybody knew that. Nothing was lower than selling used cars, but he had been doing it for a number of years. Was blackmailing a dirty record manufacturer worse than selling used cars? It was hard to tell. Uh, that's hilarious stuff. Like the idea that
Right.
he's questioning is selling used cars any worse than blackmail?
He is he's got this moral conundrum that he can't figure out. Like everything, he questions the whether or not it's right or wrong, it seems sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
So
just it's he's guided by that constant uncertainty.
Right.
and then Harmon comes to him and says like, "Hey, he gets in there and he's all drugged up, and he makes his great pitch, and then all of a sudden, like Harmon hires him, and like he wants to do all the stuff for Harmon, and it's an interesting character turn because then all of a sudden he's like, yeah, I kind of like this guy because then he eventually turns on him, right? And the kind of back and forth that he has is I think is interesting character stuff, right? I don't know. I mean, did you find that?
No, I like how Al is in particular narrates how Harmon is roping him in a way that a used car salesman would rope in a customer.
Yeah,
So, but he doesn't realize it until after Harmon has done it.
yeah,
Now, you know what I'm talking about?
yeah. He's used car salesman in himself. He's saying like, yeah, you got to hire me because I'll be really good at this and I'll be really good at that, and then Harmon does. But
Yeah,
then he changes the idea of what the game is because then he's like, yeah, I'm going to send you up into these counties and you're going to find these barbershop
right.
people.
But that's another way though that Dick, I think, does a good job of depicting and rounding those characters, especially Al.
Yeah. And then on page 118, he says, why can't I be like him? He asks himself, I'm a failure and Chris Harmon is what I ought to be, but he's everything I'm not. You know, um, that's when he turns on him. And he says, should I call the district attorney and report Harmon is a crook, or should I try to blackmail him for trying to swindle the old man? You know,
So he's just terminally jealous. He's a little prick, Al.
yep,
Ultimately,
He's a
Harmon doesn't,
reprehensible human being. He really
he
is.
doesn't like Harmon because Harmon,
Is
works
successful.
hard and has a lot of money, I guess, right? I mean, and that's what he wants, but he doesn't even know what he wants to do. Harmon will do anything, though. You give him something, he'll find a way to sell it.
Right.
And Al's
But
trying to do
again, when
that,
his
but
son-in-law
he doesn't
says
know
it.
how. He can't do it.
uh, I meant to when we were doing Radio Free Album with like anytime he mentioned an address or anything in it, I was street mapping it, and I didn't do that this time. But um, the office for Teach Records is at 25th and Pershing Avenue. So I don't know, we could Google map that, but it's a building that dominated the neighborhood. It looked like a medical dental building, or there was one next to it. So it's in like an office park. But that doesn't have anything to do with characters. But what does have to do with characters, in my opinion, is the drugs. So on page 129, to assist but not guide himself, he brought along an Anson tin filled with pills. Now was the time. Opening the tin, he took out a flat green pill that looked like a candy heart. This one was Dexamil. He swallowed the whole pill, washing it down with Coke from a bottle that he brought along. Taking the Dexy might make him feel better, would make him feel better almost all at once. It gave him a feeling of anticipation because he knew from experience that before long, a good mood would settle over him, and that out of this good mood thing, good things would come. But there was also the problem that when he had taken a Dexy, he tended to talk too fast and too much. So he balanced the little green candy sharp pill. Now he swallowed down a shiny red-coated pill, a saprine, which looked nothing like so much as a ladybug with its feet drawn in. The saprine was not a stimulant, but a tranquilizer. He had hoped that the two together would bring about the state he wanted, the state appropriate for what he was about to do. Okay, that sounds very knowledgeable.
Yeah, and like, where do you get that stuff in the 50s?
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, doctor prescription?
Dex, well,
Well,
yeah,
No?
I don't know. They sold them on the streets, didn't they?
I don't know. I mean,
think
but that was a
Dexedrine
completely
you
different
get-
era than the one we live
Excedrine
in
you
now.
could get from like a cough syrup or something.
and so he got that job, and then the last character thing, page
Bob Ross.
135, is some good character stuff with about how he used car salesman in his way into the job. And then on 149, I thought there was really great character stuff with Al and Tootie, and that's when Al and Tootie had the drunken argument. And
Well, when they're not drunk.
no, they have been drinking because
No, they hadn't been drinking. The one in the house where his wife comes in,
yeah, page
he
149.
says, "You guys might as well drink because you sound just as bad when you haven't been drinking."
Both of you quarreling. Oh yeah,
That's when he goes and gets a drink.
yeah. Both of you always quarreling tonight. Both of you sober, still quarreling. Yeah.
I thought that was
Boys,
hilarious.
Listen,
You
you
guys sound
boys.
just as bad sober as you do when you've been drinking.
Listen, you boys getting a little too carried away. Better calm down. Yeah, I thought that was a great scene.
Yeah.
Did you both get the sense that he was engaging more with race relations here than in other books?
He's
yes.
done that in a few, but
He has, but it seemed pretty pronounced here, especially
that's-
with
I don't think
Tootie.
he really engages with it, though. Does he?
That's the next theme.
Well, so this goes back to the almost there thing that David started off at the beginning. I think he wanted to do, because if you think of the characters and stuff and the culture, he
Yeah.
wanted to do more with it, but doesn't get there,
Kind of backs off of it, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
see,
so
that's
page-
where I feel Miss Lane or whatever her name is. I felt like there should have been something
Yep.
going on there,
Yep.
but there just wasn't. I think it's that reason is he didn't want
Do
to.
would that have been
Or maybe
taboo to
Maybe
get
the
them
editor
together?
backed him off of that thing.
Oh, she was a black realtor. Yeah, a black woman. Yeah, it would have been. I mean, come on, like
Very taboo at that time.
At that
So
time.
so that makes much more sense in terms of what he's doing at the end there. He's getting as close as he can, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As he's allowed. Yeah.
Interesting.
because
Huh.
think about the Jeff Nichols movie about the anti-racial or the multiracial couple from the one.
Oh,
with
yeah.
Joel Egerton. Yeah, they had that was a Supreme Court fight in the 50s
Yeah.
for them to even be allowed to be married.
Yeah, I was thinking of course it was, a problem, but I was thinking in that specific setting, in California, in that,
I think it would have been less
That's
of
all
an
pre 94 or 64. So
yeah.
yeah,
so
it would have been more of an issue. I think it would have been less of an issue of them having a relationship at Berkeley than it would have been them having a relationship in a novel that was published around the country.
yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yep.
I think so. But there is some things that, okay, so page 25 is where we first meet the Doolittles, and there's a lot of details about the Doolittles on page 25. And so they get there's almost an info dump about the Doolittles on page 25. And he says here the Doolittles were middle class Negroes that he had were the first middle class Negroes that he had ever heard of. They owned more property than anyone else that he'd ever met since coming to the Bay Area from St. Helena. And Miss Doolittle, who personally ran a string of rental properties, was as mean and stingy as any other landladies that he had run up against. And he talks about her not being any more humanitarian just because she was black, towards her.
I love that. I love that part.
Yeah.
Everything's to the lowest bidder, and
Yeah. Now,
as shoddily as she can fix it, she will.
the use of Negroes here as a term does not age well. It is what it was, and but it does.
But that's not out of it was used in that capacity.
Yeah,
And
it was
the capacity that it's being used by Dick there
Yeah, and but for
at
modern
that
readers,
time.
it's not used malicious. That's
no,
Right.
no. And but for modern readers, that's going to take some getting used to.
yeah, modern readers.
Yeah, I know how you feel about that, but
David, I don't know about that. I mean, I don't know, maybe for Gen Z and millennials searching,
I think
uh,
they
it's set in the 50s. I mean, if anybody with a reasonably, well, I was going to say good knowledge of history and the civil rights in the 60s and so forth. We don't have that anymore, though, do we?
that's tough.
well, I just spent the morning arguing with somebody online who insisted that Sinners was a racist movie because all the white people were vile characters in it, and I couldn't believe that I had to explain that a horror movie set in the Jim Crow South is not going to have like a sharecropper with a heart of gold in it. Like of course all the white people are racist in a movie about the Jim Crow South, right? Like that should be obvious. But this and I this is a list.
But there has to be one character that's like, oh, come on, guys.
Right. Exactly.
Did you see that, Larry? I haven't seen it yet.
I haven't seen it yet.
I've heard it. Everybody says it's good.
It's great. It's very good. And it's not a racist movie because white people are portrayed. I can't believe that somebody wanted to die on the hill of boo hoo, the poor white people, the Jim Crow South. But here, that's what I spent my morning doing.
White people in Jim Crow South.
Yeah. And this person is from another country, so I gave them credit at first saying like, well, maybe you don't understand what the Jim Crow South was about. But apparently, anyways.
Yeah.
Page 44, one of the and we talked about this page earlier. This is the under the car scene. But Jim Fergesson has a thought like, I wouldn't have, so he's talking about sitting down with Tootie Doolittle, and then he says, when the hell would I sit down with Negroes? So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Jim is definitely
he's definitely a racist.
He's definitely a racist. So
which that's Doesn't make him less interesting to me, but
No, he's definitely
not likable.
not.
But he was never likable. So
there is also some stuff about on page 88 where again he's 188 later in the book, where he's talking, and I almost put this in the California section, but Harmon is saying, this is Harmon talking. We don't know. We've been out here on the West Coast for at least 11 months, and I would judge gathering by the changes in the picture, especially in Marin County. You probably read about the enormous new public housing that opened up in Marin County, really elaborate structures, and the taxpayers are paying. Berkeley's ruined by them. They're practically taking over the city in toto. It's taken 15 years, but now it's done. So, and then Al says, who? And then Bob Ross, not the painter, the character in the novel, says, Negroes. It says that gave their contact away. Even on the phone, the voice was recognizable. The Negro intonation. So
that's a little more.
Yeah.
That one kind of shocked me, actually. I was like, oh, wait. They're all racist?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think in the science fiction. The first thing with race that always comes to mind is the end of Flow My Tears. Flow My Tears.
Yeah.
But there has to be, because it's all over the mainstream books that we've looked at. There has to be. Have either of you ever seen an article, or geez, there's certainly a book to be written on representations of race in Dick's canon?
Yeah. I'm not writing it, but
yeah, but Dick's view.
I'd be surprised.
Fairly clear, but in the writing, yeah, it's interesting, especially in Flow My Tears. He talks about how in the black neighborhoods they police their own streets and they do a good job of it.
Well,
which is interesting because he always has this like
counterclock.
There's always an empowering element to the way he portrays black people.
To a degree, and then also there's a lot of race stuff in Do Androids Dream if you think about the way the Andes are treated. And
sure, absolutely. That's a metaphor for racism. Yes.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah. So there's a lot to do there. Bruner also wrote extensively about race, including lots of allegories for South.
Yeah, no, it's everywhere, and there have been books written about, representations of race and science fiction and so forth. And Dick's been talked about, but I wondered if anybody had. I'll look into it. Anybody has converged specifically on his stuff.
Well, doesn't he have a black?
And if you're out there,
isn't there a black president in one of them, or a black presidential candidate?
I can't remember. Wait, sorry, David, say that again.
I said, and if you have a good idea for writing a book about race and PKD, send a proposal to Subjectics. But I think.
Well, hey, I had my African American literature class I've been teaching for 20 years taken away from me.
Really?
Oh no.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's look, there is a lot to be said here, and I think this book, that I think you're right, he's almost there. He could have done really interesting things with it, but he probably.
But I forget though that he was hindered by there was only so much he could do if he wanted to publish anything.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He couldn't go all the way.
No.
Like Kubrick couldn't. I was talking about this yesterday in an interview about Strangelove Country. Kubrick couldn't go all the way in Lolita. That wasn't the film he would have made if there wasn't if he wasn't there wasn't censorship.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to go too much further there because I think the race thing is an almost there. Like he almost.
No, it's interesting though, endlessly, I think.
Yeah, and what I think is that we can look at all these mainstream novels and see where Dick is almost there and he's almost getting to the thing that's interesting. The only other things that I think were really interesting and then the last section that I had is what was he trying to say? And I think,
Yeah, that's a good question.
what is he trying to say? There's some interesting things about the pirate label, and but I think the two characters, and obviously the title is Humpty Dumpty in Oakland. So, you know,
You want to read that passage, David?
it's on page 247. Mary Allen is talking to Tootie, and she says, "Do you know where she is?" Tootie says, "Did she leave you, man?" Talking about Al's wife. "Maybe," Al said. And then Tootie says, "You're just a Humpty Dumpty. You just stand there, stand around while it all happened to you. You just perch and watch. So now you don't even have a wife, a nice wife like that. So you're just a Humpty Dumpty." I think he was trying to present like this guy. I think the title means he's like this broken guy who fell off this wall and like, and fell to pieces. And what we're watching.
Well, that passage, the passage you read explains it. It's right there.
Yeah.
Very succinctly, too. I mean, his life is broken now because he lets things happen to him, kind of. He just kind of watches. He's a passive observer for the most part. He wants to be, more of a go-getter like Herman, but he can't bring it to bear.
But he doesn't have the tools to do that.
Yeah.
Or the personality, or there's something wrong inside of him.
Yeah.
See, at first I thought Dick was talking about Fergesson, and I guess we could apply it to him too.
Yeah, we can.
Falls down and breaks.
Yeah, he does break.
Yeah.
Whereas Al is broken, but not the same way. It's very
now
different.
I'm thinking Fergesson literally falls down and breaks.
Yeah.
Al metaphorically falls down and breaks. To some degree, Dick plays with dualities a lot. I wouldn't say two sides of the same coin, but there's a little yin and yang going on there. Although I would say Al is more yin and yang with Harmon. Yeah. Harmon is the anti-Al.
I will say that this novel has more going on for it than I think this is one of those ones where you could talk yourself into liking it more than you did when you were actually reading it. Because there are interesting things going on, and I do think but
I think none of them come to fruition. That's the problem, is that it doesn't.
And keep in mind,
I didn't come out the other side like, oh, this is what this meant. Or
I got that feeling too.
And keep in mind, whenever we're reading these posthumous novels, these were never ones that Phil okayed.
He tried to get it published, so it's.
Well, I mean, he sent them out to be published, but he may have wanted to do another draft before it saw the light of day. We don't know, but what we do know, that's the thing
is he did not give his permission for them to be published.
Right. So he may have decided a couple months after we read the last letter, okay, maybe this isn't ready. Maybe this doesn't have what it needs. Maybe I didn't do enough with Al, and I didn't do enough with Race,
but I feel like that is the running theme of his straight novels, is that he doesn't quite get there to what he wanted to say with them.
Well, whereas when I read The Man Whose Teeth Were All Exactly Alike, I saw no reason why that needed to be published, right? I just didn't. I just other than the curiosity that it's a Philip K. Dick thing. Whereas I can actually see some merit to this one. I can see some story merit. There's some interesting ideas that I see there's more playing with things that PKD played with in his fiction overall. I think the Entertainment Weekly or the Publisher's Weekly blurb is a little over the top, trying to make it sound like he's playing with our perceptions of reality, but they are a little bit here. because Al is so full of shit, right? But at the same time, so did Milton Lumpke. Milton Lumpke played with a little bit of those things too. And so
Well, here's
Yeah, I was going to say I saw a lot of Lumpke in this book.
here's a question. It was the lawyer telling the truth about everything, the Sarnis? Like, did Julie quit her job instead of getting fired?
That was all weird. There was a lot packed in there in the end.
It was a ton. There was a ton in that.
That could have been expanded quite a bit. Yeah.
Like, everything that Al believed had happened in a totally different way than he believed it happened.
Yeah.
Or he was told
Yeah.
that it.
And that happens a lot, though. And I liked that too. I mean, sometimes you don't know if it's his perception or subjective and objective reality kind of trade places a lot. Yeah.
Especially in that section. Like, that was, I don't even know how to think of that. I just read it like a couple hours ago. So I'm still processing it, but.
yeah. All right. So on that note,
You have no thoughts on that, David?
Well, I think, well, we need to rate it. All right. So I am going to give Humpty Dumpty in Oakland 3 used cars out of 5. And I might be being more generous. I probably would have given it 2 this morning, and I'm giving it 3 this right now because I think I enjoyed the conversation about it. But that tells me that there's more to it than I initially thought. I think that that's fair to say. But I don't know how you guys feel about it. So, Langhorne, what's your ranking?
Well, I have to say that I enjoyed the first half of this book. I really did. I was a big fan about hearing about Ferguson's misadventures in Marin County and just his whole demeanor tickled me. And I liked the female characters. My problem with the book was Al. I hated that character. I wanted him gone from day one.
I think is that your most hated Philip K. Dick character?
I think he might be of all time.
I don't think I've heard you express such ire for another
I just
character.
don't.
Whereas I thought Al was hilarious to read about.
I couldn't stand anything about him. Maybe because he's antithetical to me. Maybe that's what it was. I just, I like to relate to characters, and I couldn't relate to him in any way that made me feel good.
Okay, so what's your final rating?
I'm gonna give him 2 Doolittles out of 5. And that's all for Al. He gets 2.
I'll go with, I had 2 broken eggs out of 5, but I'm going to go with 2.5 out of 5 because of our conversation. It gave me some things to think about.
Yeah, and I do think that that's the thing that's going on. Does any of us think there should be a movie treatment? I'm going to go with no.
I was going to say this of the books, the mainstream books we've read. I think this is the least adaptable.
Right.
Yeah.
But I could be wrong. Larry?
I don't see it making a good movie.
I think that you could potentially do a funny movie about like
maybe a comedy. Yeah.
A dark comedy about, if you got it a little funnier in a like Coen Brothers way about like, Al fucking up his entire life from the moment. Actually, yeah, you know what? I could see it working as a funny movie.
Maybe the cast of grumpy old men or something in there. Figure it out.
Well, if you had the right actors to like make the characters interesting enough,
Yeah, Coen Brothers would probably be able to make this a good movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could make a funny, and it would be an interesting experiment of like, could you turn one of these realist novels into an actually functioning and interesting movie? Would be an interesting.
Well, I think Milton Lumpke would make a good movie, and
yeah,
possibly a couple of the others, but This is
For all of his
probably
mainstream novels, though, except for Confessions.
this is the toughest one, I think.
No, if they were going to be made into a movie, though, for me anyway, I guess, there just needs to be some sort of darker, more elements with more edge. I don't know,
Yeah.
of some kind. There needs to be some more edginess, at least for me.
All
And not
right.
just the pastoral sort of.
Yeah, it's a bit too Lifetime movie,
Yeah. Yeah,
for me.
makes sense.
All right, let's quickly get through our Dicklike suggestions. Um, uh, I have only one, even though it's been a long time since we've done this. And I'm just going to really quickly shout out future Hangout guest Sarah Langan and her science fiction novel Better World, which I thought was underrated. And of course, I also want to shout out James Reich's Skinship being nominated for two Big Other awards, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
That is, well, that's a beautiful book.
yeah. But it's already been a Dick-like suggestion on here, so I think we talked about it during Radio Free. I think that was the one. But Langhorne, you got a Dick-like suggestion?
Yeah, there's a game that just came out last week or the week before called Altars, and it's very much like it's very much like Moon, because you're basically on a desolate planet and you have to make clones of yourself to do stuff. So each clone has its own personality, and each clone has a job to do, and it's all about the interpersonal relationships between you and yourselves, and how well you get along with yourself dictates how well the project goes. So, and whether you survive or not. And it's I played the demo, and it's a lot of fun. So
Brand new?
brand new game, Altars.
Hey, have you ever played Californium?
Yeah.
Is that good?
Yeah, it's very PKD, that's for sure.
Right. That's why I was going to write about that.
If you know about PKD, you're going to do well in the game, but you have to know PKD.
Is there a lot of biographical stuff in that?
A lot, yeah. It's pretty much all biographicals.
Yeah, I think you had that as a Dick-like suggestion early.
Like one of the first couple of Dick-like suggestions.
I've been having trouble downloading that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I was going to write about it, but I can only do so much.
Just do it. Do you have a Steam account? If you get a Steam account.
I did. I got a Steam account, but it doesn't work on this computer, and I'll try it some other.
Yeah, it could be.
You guys could talk about that.
Yeah,
you're
right. My suggestion. I don't think I've mentioned this before on here. Christopher Miller's The Cardboard Universe of Phoebus K. Dank.
Oh,
Have you not read this? I can't. I haven't. I didn't know anything about it. It came on my radar when I started writing that book on Philip K. Dick life writing.
Who is it by?
It's by Christopher Miller. He's written a couple of other books, and then he disappeared about 10 years ago. I haven't been able to get a hold of him. I wanted to interview him. I'm writing about that book right now, which I just finished. It's huge. It's like 600 pages. And of course, Phoebus K. Dank is a version of Philip K. Dick. And it's basically a mirror world, through a glass darkly, satirically, and hilariously of Dick's life and work. It's incredible. I can't believe I hadn't heard of it before. I mentioned it last year at the Dick Fest, but I hadn't read it at that point, and even Frank Hollander hadn't heard of it. But definitely check it out. Anybody who with a remote knowledge of Dick will get deep.
Miss Kate Dink.
That's awesome. Yeah, I definitely want to read that. All right,
Now,
so what do we have next time?
Yeah, did you Mary and the Giant, right?
Mary and the Giant.
Yeah.
And I got a little blurb here from pkdbooks.com. You guys know who runs that? I'd never heard of it. Mary and the Giant, written in 1953. It features Mary Ann Reynolds, a woman determined to make her own way in the world. But Pacific Park, California in the 1950s is not really the place for Mary. Her relationship with a black singer offends against the small town's views on sexual mores and exposes its bigoted views on race. We're going all the way into race here. This is a powerful portrayal of the claustrophobia of small town California, and Mary Ann Reynolds is one of the most memorable characters Dick ever created. Interesting.
Now, I shall have you know that when
And we're
we
not
had
all
a
him.
discussion about everyone's favorite of the realist novels on the Hangout, I think 2 weeks ago, multiple people said Mary and the Giant was their favorite of the realist novels.
Oh, yeah.
Multiple people. So, looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we can find a cheap edition. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that one. So, on that note, if you are nerd enough to have made it this far,
Good for you.
Yeah, good for you. But
Shame on
also, make it to the PKD Hangouts. Come spend some time with us. As always, everybody, keep it paranoid, stay paranoid.
There you go.